Hello, and welcome back to another day in the arena. It is me, it is CGB, and these are the adventures of young CGB. And today what we're going to look at is the History Lesson deck, which is a deck we just unlocked from completing some quests. And if you've already unlocked this deck, you know what it looks like. If you don't, it's this collection of blue and white cards. It's got some synergy built in. I won't say it has no synergy built in, but what we're going to do this time, since everybody had kind of a nauseous, I would say, not everybody. Plenty of people had a big reaction to my take on Kicker, which was to remove the Kicker cards that I didn't think were as good. But for the funds, let's take this out and hit it in free play a few times. Maybe only once. We'll see. We'll see how this goes. We're going to take it one game at a time, but we're going to play the deck in its original configuration as handed to you by Wizards. Now, we got to go over some stuff really quick, because I've been listening to some feedback, and it's important that I clarify some things. All right, this is a big deal. I say not to use free play, all right? And there's several different factors on that. I say not to use free play for your competitive decks. I say for your competitive decks, go into quick constructed so you get some return on what's most likely to be wins because you're playing your most competitive deck. All right. Now, few reasons. Number one, in free play, your matchmaking is based on the contents of your deck and your rank. But the deck contents comes first. If you are playing a deck that is full of what are considered top tier cards, you will get matched against other players with top tier cards. This is kind of a waste of everyone's time as we bump into the toughest players we can, playing back and forth. I mean, I guess if you really just want to work on getting better with your deck, you can do this. It's perfectly acceptable if you want to learn more about Magic. However, if you've got the basics of your deck and you have a top tier deck you want to play, you should go to Quick Constructed. If you have a deck that you do not know much about, or let me say again, Quick Constructed doesn't have the matchmaking feature based on deck strength. You just get matched with other people in Quick Constructed, all right? So the deck matching thing doesn't hold sway in there, all right? Now, when we do free play, I think the best time for that is a deck that you're not confident about, or anything that you're trying to learn, or anything that you're like, I don't know if this is going to work. I would definitely qualify History Lesson as that. It's a Wizards built deck. They just handed it to us. And the matchmaking is very likely to pair us up against other beginners. So let's go find out what we play against and see how it goes, and at least give this deck a shot. But let's keep in mind that if we're playing against other beginners, it may not really tell the whole story about the deck. Some would say that it's an easier grind if you stick to free play and you play the beginner decks as they are because you will play against other beginners. That's only if it is your intention to prey on other beginners and treat fun as a zero-sum game. I think that if you're advanced enough that you think you can beat other beginners with the starter decks because they are beginners, you should be playing a more advanced deck in Quick Constructed more often. At least that's my read on the situation. Now, these are my opinions. You absolutely do not have to follow my advice, but I'll give you an example. When somebody comes into my channel and says, hey, I crafted the red-black deck you talked about, and I got paired against a bunch of really good players, and I lost 5 games in a row after I crafted those cards, and they blame the matchmaking algorithm, then I say, well, were you in free play or Quick Constructed? Because Quick Constructed wouldn't do that. And then they, of course, tell me, yeah, they went to free play. Well, just a reminder. You want to play competitive decks in Quick Constructed. Anyway, here in this game, things have been pretty simple so far. We've cast a 2-drop because it was our only 2-drop, and a 3-drop because it was our only 3-drop. So far, so good. Our opponents played a Kitesail Freebooter, and they took away our Antiquities War, which is sad. We can't block the 1/1 on the 1/2, so we have to take the damage. We have a little bit more material, but it's not tremendously relevant. It's kind of amazing that our 2-drop and our 3-drop just may not do much. Oops, that is not what I tried to play. This is a decent pull because it is a 3/3 flying flash wizard that gives all our historic spells flash, and that's pretty neat. And I will wait and I will try to ambush because flash lets us play this at any time, so we can play this on our opponent's turn. I will try to flash it in, is what they say, and then block the freebooter, so my 3/3 can eat the 1/2. We can even play this after my opponent declares their attackers. So we'll wait. Our opponent will say the freebooter's attacking. We'll play Wrath, and then we'll block with it. So this is how it goes. We click attack. Our opponent picks their attacker. We now, before we click block, we play our Wrath. And now if we get a chance to click block, there we go. We'll block here. And we'll also put our Gleaming Barrier in front of the Rigging Runner, because that is an 0-4. It can absorb the 2-2, whereas the 1-2 would die. Now we'll see if our opponent has what's called a trick, something that they can play. And they have a Lightning Strike for the Wrath. Takes it out. The freeboot is still blocked. It won't deal us damage. They could have played the Lightning Strike before that block to prevent that. So our opponent was ready for our trick. And now we get to attack them back. Let's see what happens. Alright, I'll play the Joyer's Familiar. Reduces the cost of our historic spells by 1. Woohoo! So if we draw more historic spells, casting them will be cheaper. Overall, though, it's important, like we want to talk about, a Gleaming Barrier can block all day, but it's a one-dimensional card. A 4-mana 2-2 flyer is what we would call below rate. Remember, for 4 mana, we got a 3-3 flyer with more abilities. A 4-mana 2-2 flyer with a reduction ability isn't nearly as impressive as giving all our historic cards flash. So it's important to recognize the difference between these two cards, and while this may have its place somewhere, it's definitely not a very strong card. We saw our opponent use a 1-mana shock to kill it. Captain Lannery Storm with haste, making treasure, the pirates swinging in aggressively. And we draw another island. So yeah, tough draws. I think that what we will do is leave our pioneers on defense now that our opponent has so many attackers. And I think we keep playing out our lands. Sometimes you want to keep a land in your hand for a certain reason. If I saw a reason in this specific case, I would. But I think that our deck wants to have the lands on the board. Although it's hard when I don't know the exact list. I just don't think there's anything like discard this card to draw a card, like a Chart of Course. Alright, opponent wants to get in there. We can guess they have some kind of a trick in their hand. So let's see if we can draw it out of our opponent with some blocks. That maybe both here. No, that doesn't do it either. Maybe we'll just block here. This could eat the treasures. I don't think that's very important. So this here. Now, we could just see if our opponent does anything. I want to double block this freebooter, but I'm too worried that our opponent has another shock. And I want to see if I can make them play it. So let's see what they do here. A fiery cannonade is going to kill all of our creatures. And we draw an Antiquities War. Let's see what happens. Okay. Well, we can play the Servant, or we can sack the Treasure to play the Surveyor. I think the Servant is fine. So we look at our top 5 cards. We pick an artifact. Next turn we get to do it again because it's a saga. That's the way it works. You get the first chapter, then the next turn you get the next chapter, then the next turn you get the last chapter. So we're going to get to repeat this chapter, look at our top 5, and pick another artifact at the start of our next turn. And then on the third turn, we turn all of our artifacts into 5/5 creatures. The idea being then you can swing and do a whole bunch of damage. Pirate Cutlass, that's going to pump a pirate. Looks like our opponent's going to choose the freebooter since we can't block it anyway. Now let's see how they wish to attack. 1, 2, 3. Captain Lannery Storm can sacrifice a treasure to pump it. So this can go for 5 damage. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, but that doesn't kill us. I think our best chance in this game might be to have a really good turn next turn, playing a few things. But if we go to 3, the problem there is the freebooter just kills us the following turn. However, blocking Lannery's Storm here, it doesn't feel like it achieves much. Our opponent would also have to sacrifice the treasures here. I think what I'm going to do is not block, let the opponent through, and we'll see if they remember to sacrifice their treasures. Remember, we're a long shot to win this game no matter what happens. So let's let's take some long shots, and maybe it'll all pay off. Okay, the Familiar can block in the air. That's not great though. Or the Gateway can try to get us something else. Do they leave us dead? It seems that it leaves us dead. But yeah, I guess I have to take you. But again, for 4 mana, we should get something reasonably strong. This is not very strong, unfortunately. We could have attacked with the Servant and then untapped itself. I guess in a perfect world, that's the right play. I don't think it's a play that matters in this case. I think anybody would agree with that, even if they like pointing out my misplays. Alright. So we can block here. We take 3, and we have to block here. Alright. Our opponent can shoot the Voltaic Servant with the Fanatical Firebrand, bring its toughness to 2, and letting the Rigging Runner kill it. Captain Lannery's Storm will trade with the Familiar. We'll take 3 in the air from the freebooter, and now we draw. It's an interesting draw, but I don't think it will be good enough. We were only able to make 1 5/5. We'll play Black Blade Reforged, but we don't have enough mana to equip it, so that's going to be the concession. Beaten down by what looks like a mana-flooded and reasonably weak in card territory Pirate deck. Not really where we want to be. So now let's give a try to the revised version that I'm playing. So this is the history lesson version that I've built. And what we've cut a lot of the cards that looked a little bit ugly from the last one. And you'll see that we have a good amount of mana production anyway. We have 24 lands, and we have these ways that get more lands. Seems like a lot, and maybe it is. I could probably cut it for something else. In fact, it makes a lot of sense that I could cut a land for a Skittering Surveyor. So I'm working on the deck even as we're talking about it, just to have more historic triggers. But let's go through the whole thing. So we still haven't done any crafting, but we have been lucky to open a few cards that I think fit into this deck, and we'll talk about those. But first of all, we keep Seal away because we need some early removal. I put in Glint-Nest Crane to help us find more artifacts since we have such a high artifact density in the deck. I've also got Heart of Kirin, which will work with some of our Planeswalkers that we'll get to. I've got 2 Prophetic Prisms. When they enter the battlefield drawing a card, I think that's... If you're going to trigger Historic, you want to do it this way. I've got 2 Size. Every time you play an artifact, you get Thopterist. So that's really fun. I've got some Aethersphere Harvesters for some life gain, along with some Filigree Familiars, some Skittering Surveyors, and some Skyscanners. So this whole package right here of these artifact creatures for 3, these value artifacts, are meant to bridge a gap to some other cards. And once I get into them, you'll see what I mean. I opened an extra Teshar. So I have 2 Teshars, the idea being when we play a historic spell, we return a creature with converted mana cost 3 or less from the graveyard to the battlefield. So what we want to be getting back are Glint-Nest Cranes, Size, and these 3-drop creatures every time we play an artifact. So that's sort of the value proposition of the deck. We still have Antiquities War, but I feel like we have a much better cards to use it with. We also have Dovin Baan, which is a Planeswalker that has some neat abilities, such as minus to gain 2 life and draw a card, and plus to shut down a creature and its ability. -3, -0 keeps a large number of creatures from doing anything in the format. We have 2 Fumigates. I'm really thinking I should go up to 3, but we'll get to that in a minute. We have another Tezzeret, we have another Teferi, and we have a Skysovereign. So these are some of the mythic opens we've had, and this is a mythic everybody gets. And we have 4 Walking Ballista to keep the historic triggers coming. So yeah, then on the mana base, I'm running a Reliquary Tower in case I fill my hand. I think it's possible. Some Spire of Industry to fix my mana. Inventors Fair, yeah. Field of Ruin, we got some Meandering Rivers. I think what I'm actually going to do the more I look at the deck and the amount of lands we have in it is I'm going to cut a Reliquary Tower and I'm going to move in another Fumigate. That may be ambitious, but I'm thinking with 2 Skittering Surveyors, 2 Traveler's Amulet, and 2 Renegade Map that we can do it. Also, I only have a handful of ways to crew the Heart of Kiran, so I think I'm going to remove those for a Puzzleknot. And the best Puzzleknot that you can play in just about any color combination is the black one. The black one comes into play, you draw a card and lose a life. But I'm trying to stay on theme in the blue-whiteness, and I don't have a way to use a second ability to gain the other life unless I have a Prophetic Prism in play. So let's try a Cogworker's Puzzleknot and make some 1/1s. Maybe that can help us gum up the battlefield and also trigger Historic. So that's what we're going to try. A few Cogworker's Puzzleknots on the small end to buy us more time for the later Fumigate, hopefully winning with value from Teshar and Planeswalkers. So this is what we're going to try. I'm really not sure how it's going to go. I don't do any pre-testing on these decks. It's 100% I hit record on this channel and I show you every game. So we're going to play again in free play with this relatively brewed up contraption, and we're going to see how we do. Also, we're not focused on solving our quests right now. Anytime I get up to 3 quests, 3 gold quests waiting for me, we're going to make sure that we build and play decks that achieve those quests as quickly as possible. We don't want any of them to expire. When you are new and your account is new, the big objective has to be to be completing your quests. The quests will give you payout whether you win or lose. There aren't many things in the game that do that. We're going to play our Amulet on turn 1 instead of our tap land. We could do it either way, but I like leading this way. Okay, I'm going to play this tapped, and then we're going to sacrifice this to get a Plains. You can, and technically could, wait to do it on your opponent's end step. I am going to do it now. It's what I do to save time. Explaining it, of course, did not save time, but hopefully it saves time for you and the people you play against in the future, because I took the time to explain it today. Our opponent has 2 Memorials to War, which you can sacrifice to destroy a land. Maybe they're on some kind of a land destruction deck. If so, we're going to make sure we keep finding land. I'm going to play my Skittering Surveyor, I think, and go get another Plains, just so that we have access to double white, should we draw a card that needs it. And there we go. Just out of curiosity, I'm reviewing what cards I did put in here that are double white. Fumigate comes to mind, although I see no rush for that right now. It looks like that's about it. So, just stuff to keep an eye on later. Red, red, green. Maybe it is a land destruction deck. And here's a Spring to Mind, which will allow our opponent search for a land. Put them in position to... Okay, blue. So, red, green, blue so far. We'll play our Plains. Our opponent knows about it. Playing another land would let our opponent know what's in our hand, so this is sneaky behavior we can take. We'll play the Antiquities War, and we'll start finding artifacts to put on the battlefield. So we're going to bottom all these cards, which it happens. I'm going to take the Skyscanner since I have a Ballista, and these are very good value. 3 mana, 1/1. When there's a battlefield, draw a card. Usually not good enough for high-level decks because 3 mana for a 1/1 is a very bad rate. And the card is something that you usually can't use the same turn that you play the Skyscanner because 3 mana is usually most of a turn, at least in Standard Constructed. But it's it's a good little value card. It can take up spots in kind of this mid-range that we're playing. Our opponent plays Hour of Promise, and you see they are just cranking out some zombies and lands. We're going to grab a Filigree Familiar. Our opponent, being a big mana deck, is pretty scary. They can do all kinds of nasty stuff. But to put pressure on them, I think we just want to play out some artifacts. I'm going to play a Skyscanner because it flies, and if we turn it into a 5/5 next turn, I want to hit the opponent. And then I'll play out a Ballista, which would also turn into a 5/5 next turn for the Antiquities War. As we prep for the war, let's see what our opponent can do. I do have a little bit of knowledge of this deck the opponent's playing. It plays some board wipes, it plays a lot of very powerful cards, and I think our opponent's about to wipe the board. That's the impression I just got because they started tapping their mana. So normally I wouldn't block at all here, but I'm going to. Because I think our opponent wants to sweep the board. And if they don't, we still get to pop them for 5 with the Skyscanner. I think they're going to blow up their own peeps, is what I am saying. And even if they don't, we can generate more value. Now, they could go a different route now because I made those blocks. That's also perfectly fine with me. They do have to take 5 from the Skyscanner. All right. It looks like they're just not going to go that route now. Gaining 3 from the Gift of Paradise helps soften the blow. But let's see. It's up to them. They play cards like Hour of Devastation that deal 5 damage to everything, including their own zombies. And with 6 mana, what are they doing? Haphazard Bombardment. Well, that's no fun at all. Destroys something at random, and they've decided to target our lands for elimination. We're going to have to make sure that we can keep going on lands. Okay, well that can help us. All right, let's go ahead and swing in with the scanner. Let's play the Amulet. Let's sacrifice the Amulet. Let's go get a white. Play that. And I guess we'll play another Skyscanner to keep the odds of drawing more lands coming. Although, of course, we don't. Yeah, these kind of power big mana decks, we are exactly what they want to play against. Mid-range value decks, we really don't have a lot we can do against them. So this is a very negative matchup. I don't know what world we could possibly win it in. We'll keep trying for a few more turns. But the odds are that we should be spending our time elsewhere almost as soon as we saw that they got to 6 mana. Some matchups in Magic are just bad. Especially somebody who's going to manually tap. It's going to take a very long time for them to do all the things they want to do. Yep, and I've seen enough. When you're that far behind, there's no point in playing. Our opponent's going to get to destroy 2 of our cards every end step of theirs. And let's try again. We'll try this hand. It's a little shaky, but we can give it a shot. Alright, I'm going to play the Prism because I want to get deeper in my deck and fix my mana a little, in case I need to play white cards. So yeah, this kind of dirtling early game, it's not going to work against ramp decks. It looks like this opponent is also on a ramp style deck as they're playing creatures that accelerate their mana. I showed you in earlier videos on this channel to bolt the bird, that is kill cards like this the second you see them. Unfortunately, we don't even have the means to do that with the deck we're playing, which is one of the reasons, quite honestly, this is not how I would play blue-white. With any amount of the collection unlocked, I also wouldn't grind with this deck. In general, you would have to really love like this style of deck or playing this deck to play this deck at all at this level. I don't recommend it at all. However, I receive messages on Discord and in YouTube comments all day asking me what would I do with this deck and what would I do with that deck. That's the only reason I'm showing you. I want you to know that. It is important that you know that. I don't enjoy playing bad decks. I don't know if you enjoy playing bad decks, but it's always, I guess, worth figuring out what is a bad deck and what isn't, especially when you're a new player. All right. This game is far from over, though. I don't mean to give the impression that this game is a loss. It's not that bad yet. I think I'll take the Puzzleknot here because we can block the Hydra with it and buy some time. The Antiquities War could do some amazing things within 2 turns if our opponent doesn't destroy it, or doesn't play too many giant threats. As they have right now, this Hydra, because they have 6 energy, can be a 5/4 or a 6/5 hexproof, meaning we can't target it or kill it, which is already far better than anything our deck can do. Of course, Fumigate would be a good draw, and we do have 3 of them. The opponent's probably not going to pump it until we actually try to kill it. And now they have an Electrostatic Pummeler with 9 energy. This card can double its power and toughness, which is absolutely wild for 3 energy. A Ballista makes that a little complicated, but not too much. Like, we could sack our Ballista now, and our opponent would have to pump some energy into this, but then they would just untap. The damage from the Ballista would go away, and they'd continue about their business. Let's see instead what we can do with our Antiquities War. We got Skyscanner, okay. Let's go to play our land. Let's play a Puzzleknot so we have a blocker for one of the opponent's creatures. Of course, we may not use it for that. We'll see. And I'm also going to play this Aethersphere Harvester, because if Antiquities War goes off next turn, this with lifelink can gain a good amount of life. Then I'm going to end my turn. Invigorated Rampage. Well, here we go. Nothing I can really do. They can pump the hell out of this now. Larger than life. Yep. I guess we will remove a counter now. Target there. But it looks like we're going to be absolutely destroyed before our Antiquities War goes off at all. Uh-huh. And as you see, now they're going to use the energy to make it a tremendously overpowered creature. It has trample, so we can't even block it. And that's the game. Let's see, we're 7 out of 20 on these blue-white spells, and so far it's been an utter beating. But hey, we'll continue working on it. Part of the problem is that the deck's full of artifacts. As far as completing a quest, like I said, this is not a very good way to do it. Well, it looks like we're stuck in a rematch, which I do hate. I never really enjoy rematches. Part of what I like about the quick play is the variety of opponents. And our opponent's going to be on the play. I guess I'll go ahead and get some tap lands out of the way early. Some different things I could have done in that last game was hold up Seal Away mana. If my opponent has a Blossoming Defense, that doesn't matter. But if they don't, perhaps we could live another turn, and maybe we'll go for that this turn. I thought that the best thing to do would be to try to put ourselves in position where if they didn't have what we call the nuts, which is an almost perfect draw, we can win the game with the Antiquities War, or at least put enough pressure on them to take a big chunk out of their board. So I don't regret that decision. Obviously, in hindsight, now we know that they are playing larger than life, that they are just trying to do nothing but pump up their Electrostatic Pummeler, and that's their whole game plan. So now we're going to be watching for that. How to play this turn. We don't have an Antiquities War, so this time, like, vomiting out all kinds of antique-like cards of that nature isn't really good. Since our opponent didn't play a Hydra or a Pummeler here, I might just take away their Servant. But I don't know if that's a very good play either. But though next turn we could have them at 0 with the Ballista. Yeah, I guess I'll just reduce the beating we're taking by grabbing their Servant away from them, playing a land, and playing the Renegade Map. Now next turn we can play another Ballista and kill their other Servant. One of the best things to do against decks like this that are all about pumping a creature as big as they can, if you kill all their creatures, there isn't much they can do. So here comes a nice big beating. As you can see, opponent's going to get him for 10, and we're going to go down to 8 already. But next turn we're going to kill their creature with one of our Walking Ballistas, and we're going to make them find another. And if they don't draw another creature, well, then all their pump spells won't do them any good. So this is our kind of plan of attack. We also have Fumigate in our deck, and if we buy enough time, we could draw it. If we draw it, then it doesn't matter what creature they play or how big it is, we can blow it up. Okay, a Field of Ruin. Let's play the Scanner. Draw an extra card. Our opponent with a Harness Lightning, I think that's very loose. You don't usually want to use a good removal spell like Harness Lightning on a 1/1 creature that draws a card. It's kind of a loss of value for you. Let's play the Puzzleknot. And what I mean by that is the average Harness Lightning is much better than the 1/1 Skyscanner. And usually the card the Skyscanner draws is better than the Skyscanner itself. So you would normally want to save your Harness Lightning at least to see what the card is that they drew. All right. Let's send in our little 1/1 and see if our opponent responds with any plays. They were really loose with the last Harness Lightning, so trying to get it out of them makes sense. We'll play a Traveler's Amulet. We'll play the Antiquities War, which is a really good draw. It's going to try to set up that big attack we've never lived long enough to do yet. I'm going to end the turn. Opponent draws another land, and they do have a Voltaic Brawler, but we do have a Walking Ballista. We'll kill that so that, again, our opponent can't do anything with it. Untap, there's a Fumigate. Let's trigger the War. That's much better than playing the Ballista here. And our opponent's going to scoop before we even do our thing. Well, we got one that time by taking out the opponent's creatures, which I would say is a good plan. We only played 2 colored spells, so this is definitely the slow way to achieve our quest here, because of all the artifacts, of course. Our opponent's telling us right away where their head's at. I can appreciate that. It's you do what you gotta do. All right. We're on the play. We have several of the cards we need, but not enough land. I have to mulligan the hand. It had 1 land and 1 Traveler's Amulet, but those kind of hands get you in trouble. We want at least 2 or 3 mana sources in our opener. 3 preferably. 2 on the draw. 3 on the play is what I like. If we go first, I want at least 3 sources. 1, 2, 3. So I'll keep this. And there's 1 on top. I'll keep that. Dread Wanderer. So our opponent opening up on what looks like the zombie deck. I'll get the fair down, and I'll play my Ballista out for 1. If our opponent plays a Lord or something of that nature, we may just want to Ballista this away right away, but we'll see. I'm going to give it time. But it's a good reason to have this on the battlefield. Metallic Mimic. Well, that's something I can definitely kill with the Ballista. It's going to choose Zombie, most certainly. And now what this says is whenever a creature enters the battlefield, it gets an additional +1/+1 counter. It makes all the zombies bigger. So we definitely want to kill that with our Ballista. But before we react, we want to place a block to prevent this damage, and then we'll kill it with the Ballista. So that way we save ourselves 2 damage this turn. Our opponent made a mistake playing the Metallic Mimic first. If they hadn't done that, we couldn't have made the play we just made, and we would have had to take 2 damage. So I have a choice between Filigree Familiar and Skyscanner. I think because our opponent could have a Death Baron or Lord of the Accursed, these are cards that make the Dread Wanderer a 3/2. If they didn't have those kinds of cards, Skyscanner would be good. It would draw us a card, and we might be able to block and trade with the Dread Wanderer. But because I am confident our opponent plays those cards that make this zombie bigger, it makes a lot of sense to play the Familiar, because this gains us 2 life, and we can block the Dread Wanderer. We would trade them for each other, and then I'd draw a card from the Familiar dying. So it would be an even better value than the Skyscanner, and the opponent's Dread Wanderer would die too. Well, they're going to attack. I'm going to block very gladly, as I would love to draw that card. I would love to get their Dread Wanderer in the graveyard off the battlefield. Teferi, the hero of Dominaria, is here. Now, I've discussed this in a previous video, but we are avoiding cracking this Renegade map until we are absolutely sure of what we want. So right now we could crack it and go get, let's see, Well, we do have a Filigree Familiar in the graveyard and a Skyscanner in hand, plus these are historic. So playing the Teshar this turn, our opponent has to find a way to deal with it. If they don't, we get great value. So I'm going to sack this and go get a Plains. And we're going to play out Teshar. So this says whenever you cast a historic spell, return a creature of converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. And that would be like this Filigree Familiar, which when it enters the battlefield gains 2 life and draws a card when it dies. Very good value. Just keeps our cards flowing, does a lot of things. We're definitely not going to block. Our opponent's attack there pretty much implies that they don't have an easy way to kill this card, or I believe they would have played it. And a land off the top. Now we can play this. We cannot play Tezzeret because we don't have an artifact right now, but we can play Teferi, who is awesome. Trigger Teshar, get back our Filigree Familiar, gain 2 life. And this is going to be the first time this account has played the Teferi we got lucky enough to crack open from a pack. If you want to play blue-white and you have a mythic wild card, just about any kind of blue-white, this is the guy.
If you show remorse, I'll show restraint.
We could minus Teferi and put this Graveyard Marshal somewhere in the deck, but I'm going to plus it and draw more cards. Drawing more cards usually feels great. It's one of the better things in Magic. And a Fumigate now makes it so we're setting up a really good wall around our Planeswalkers. I'm going to attack with Teshar. I don't think I would block with it. I don't know what my opponent could do to make me block with it. As having Skyscanner, Filigree Familiar, it can be more and more value. So let's untap these lands and say go. Our opponent's played all rare cards so far, Metallic Mimic, Graveyard Marshal, Dread Wanderer, so they might be a very decked out zombie deck, but they seem to be short on lands. Here comes the attack. We definitely block with Filigree Familiar. When it dies, we draw a card. When it's in the graveyard, we can get it back with Teshar. More value. I have to assume our opponent has a Fatal Push. Now, giving them Revolt lets them kill Teshar, but it's okay. The card definitely did its job. We got a ton of value, and we have a Teferi that's pretty well protected right now, on its way up. So let's draw a card.
Hold that thought.
All right. We'll play the Cogworker's Puzzleknot, which will make a 1/1. We'll play the Skyscanner, which will draw a card. And we'll play Meandering River. We'll untap definitely a white source. The other one doesn't matter, but the ability to sacrifice the Puzzleknot and make another 1/1 is just something to have available. I don't know when or why we would want to use it, but it's an option. Options are good. Our opponent finds their third swamp. Let's see if they can do something with it. Lord of the Accursed. So that is the zombie lord I alluded to earlier. Our opponent doesn't have any other zombies to use with it, though. Also, Inventors Fair says we gain a life if we have 3 or more artifacts. We can also sacrifice it if we have 3 or more. We can sacrifice it to get an artifact and put it into our hand. If we have 3 or more artifacts, we do. So we're going to gain a life. And we could tutor up another artifact, but I don't know that I need to. Let's think about it. Skysovereign, the Consul Flagship, is a really, really good artifact against these types of players. And that may be the play eventually, but I don't think it's the play right now. Let's draw a card.
No time for a break.
All right, let's play out this. We now have the blue mana needed to play Tezzeret. And since we have 3 artifacts, we get to draw 2 cards.
Perfection is an of course.
The other option was to make a Thopter with Tezzeret, but I do promise you the better option almost always when you can do it is to draw 2 cards. Even drawing 1 card is often better than 1 Thopter. We'll make a blue, pay a life. We're far enough ahead. We'll play Glint-Nest Crane. It'll find us another Puzzleknot, and the value is going right off the chain. I actually feel comfortable starting to attack. Untap those, say go. There's a Vraska's Contempt to take out the Teferi. It lived well, so that's going to happen. Our opponent trying to claw their way back in here. If they attack, we'll just block with the Crane. It's not a big deal. We would also have this option of sacking the Puzzleknot and blocking with all three to kill the Lord. I don't know if I'd do it, but it's one of those things where making another 1/1 and blocking with the total damage of 3 would be something we'd consider. Another Fumigate. Again, we're going to draw 2 cards whenever we have the chance to. So let's tap some of our colorless sources and play a Prism, draw an extra card. Drawing cards, man. Drawing cards. In Magic, it's good. And we found the Skyship, which the Skysovereign is just a devastating card. It kills almost everything in the zombie deck. And it's very hard for them to remove. They need something instant speed. A Vraska's Contempt will do it, but if they have that, they're going to want to use it on Tezzeret here. So you see, we're just starting to... We have so many cards in our hand, we're vomiting cards out onto the battlefield, and we're starting to attack our opponent. Nickel and diming, yes, but being on the aggressive. Here comes Gravedigger, a zombie indeed, and it can get back probably Lord of the Accursed, because the Lords are what really make the zombie deck work. But yeah, our opponent chooses the Graveyard Marshal. They want something, I guess, a little more powerful, more aggressive. It all dies to the Skyship. Let's keep drawing extra cards. We've drawn all the Fumigates this game, all of them. All right. I'm going to deploy my Skittering Surveyor. Get a land out of the deck, because why not? It's a land we don't have to draw later. And tap some lands for colorless that I don't plan to use otherwise. Nope, that wasn't what I meant to do. Misclick. Ta-da. What artifact shall we get? We'll get a Ballista. When we have this much mana, they're very fun. So let's see. Let's crew. 1, 2, 3. Submit. Power up the Skysovereign by crewing with 3 different creatures. Total power of 3. That's what crew 3 means. Total power of 3. We'll attack with it. It'll trigger the ability and deal 3 damage to the zombie. And in we go. More damage. End that turn. And we'll have to discard some cards. I'll discard the lands. I'll discard one of the Fumigates. We're very unlikely to use it this game. I don't know what it would take to make that happen. Opponent saying go implies that they have a Vraska's Contempt, an instant speed way to kill the Skysovereign, but we have a way around that. We just never make it into a creature. If we never make it into a creature, then the opponent can't target it with a card like Vraska's Contempt that reads target creature or Planeswalker. So that's the plan. Let's go to attacks and attack our opponent with what we have. See if they'll play that Vraska's Contempt. Yeah, this is, you can definitely tell it's that moment of, but hey, okay, murder it is. That's fine. All right, so we'll play a big old Walking Ballista for 4, and then we'll play the Memorial to Genius and end the turn. It'll ask me to discard. I'll discard another Fumigate. This land lets me play a Walking Ballista for 5 next turn, and just spamming Walking Ballistas from here on out. It's gonna be really hard to beat. There's the murder. Let's fire our counters at the opponent's face in response to the murder. They say good game. I agree with them. Good game. They must have gotten the munchies. They didn't want to wait any longer for us to use our ballista to damage them, so they could run. You had to go get some chips or something like that. All right, 100 gold. We're on 20 white or blue spells. We're 14 out of 20. We can keep doing a few more. Alrighty. In hindsight, that we can do a few more may have been too ambitious. I didn't realize how long the last game took. So if I'm in a bad position, or if our opponent's playing very slowly, I may just have to concede to run out the door. For those of you interested, the local roller derby team here needs their coach. They practice every Sunday night, which is when I'm recording this right now, and I've got to be there. So we'll give this a few minutes and see how fast it's going. But if it's going to be too long of a game, or if it's just clear I'm not going to win, I can get out of here. I hate to leave things that way, and I hate to treat you, my awesome viewers, that way. But we got choices to make. We are all products of the choices that we make. Opt. It looks like this is going to be some kind of control deck, which is too bad, because I do feel that my control matchup is far better than my aggro matchup in a deck like this with a lot of grinding and card advantage. But let's see how far we can get. I'll give this at most 10 minutes. Draw go. Doesn't look good. Doesn't look good. Let's see what our opponent does about this Skittering Surveyor. I mean, it's a card you can counter it. I don't think it's worth countering, and our opponent's going to play cancel. All right, just good old-fashioned cancel. Like, I wouldn't counter it. I don't know what could happen that would make me counter Skittering Surveyor. Maybe if I had 4 Essence Scatters in my hand and my opponent had 2 cards left in their hand. Sift, draw 3, then discard a card. Our opponent definitely fancies themselves a control mage. Having a really hard time with this discard decision too. Land. Okay. So what's the next play? I think I need to make sure my land keeps flowing. I'm going to play this because it draws a card. On the way in. Ooh. I do need to keep my land flowing though. Sai made me want to keep the land in my hand instead of play it. Because whenever you play an artifact, when you have a Sai on the battlefield, you get a 1/1 Thopter, which can be very strong. Alright, and now the opponent's holding up mana, which is very bad for us. Alright, let's attack. This means when your opponent has that much mana open, we want to only play the cards that we most want to see get countered. So we'll sack this. Go get a white mana. So that we keep our lands coming. We could go for Dovin Baan. Dovin Baan would get countered. I'm almost certain of it. We'll go for the Filigree Familiar. Actually, first I'll go for the Traveler's Amulet. Maybe the opponent would counter it. You just never know. And then we'll go for a Familiar. I'm sure our opponent will counter this if they countered a Skittering Surveyor. This is better than Surveyor. Not by a lot. Yep. Our opponent's playing counter all the things. So the key thing against decks like this is to get to the point where you can play 2 really good spells on the same turn, and your opponent only has enough mana to counter 1. That's what we're going to try to look for. You can also wait till your opponent goes to tap out to play something big and scary, but that's usually not a great strategy unless you have a way to kill that big and scary something. Alright, Normally, I would try to play Sai and then play the Puzzleknot, but here, in this situation, because our opponent's going to counter something, I'm going to try the Puzzleknot, and then I'm going to try the Sai. See if the opponent wishes to counter this. Yes, they do. Wow. That is very aggressive. So we'll play Sai now, and we'll see if our opponent has a murder. It seems like they might, considering the way that they're taking their time. Yes, they do. So just all the removal, all the counter spells. That's our opponent's strategy. We just have to slide something through, something important. Well, they're starting to use mana on their own turn. What could it mean? Oh, an Omen Speaker. That comes into the battlefield, lets them scry too. It's something. But it probably means what we're going to try to do is play Dovin Baan. One to the top, one to the bottom. I can guess another counterspell to the top. Maybe a murder, but usually a counterspell in those situations. Anything else? My clock is definitely ticking here. All right. Let's send it in. So the counter our opponent could have here is negate. I'm going to test them and see if they have it, rather than play the Walking Ballista, which Essence Scatter is something they might definitely have. Well, I hate to lose a game like this because of I don't have the time to play it, but sometimes you get into those situations. You also love to think you'll... Okay, there's Syncopate. I guess they run that too. All right, and we'll put out the Ballista. So Ballista resolving, it would have resolved anyway because Syncopate wouldn't have been able to counter it. So I think that we did things in the right sequence anyway. Our opponent's going to keep a card on top. It must be a way to kill one of these. And we'll see what they play. Demon of Catastrophes. So they have a 6/6 flying trample. That's a pretty good card. So I'm going to go... Let's see. I guess he could still have an Essence Scatter, couldn't he? I think I'm just going to pump this. Play land, say go. And we're going to try to make an awkward race out of this whole thing. My Ballista and my Skyscanner against the Demon. If our opponent starts attacking, of course. If they don't, we'll just keep pumping the Ballista. All right, definitely not blocking. The trample means even if we did block, we'd take 5 damage. The toughness of your creature minus the power of the opposing creature. Oh my. Well, that's probably game. Let's see what they're going to use. Get back a murder, perhaps? I guess we can Fumigate, so it doesn't have to be game. All right, target the murder, play the murder, target the Ballista. Ballista goes to the dome for 2, which is what we call, you know, face. Going to face. Face is the place. Because we can't do enough damage to kill either of these creatures. Alright, so our plan is definitely to blow up our opponent's board, but before we do, let's get one more hit in with our Skyscanner. Then we play this. Then I'm going to play this before it can be countered. All the removal. Our opponent able to draw very, very well. Good for them. The top of their deck is kind. Well, hopefully ours gets kinder. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Yep, no counter, so we can grab the Skyship, and we can play the Filigree Familiar. So our opponent currently out of their counterspell gas at last. And, well, they must have a removal spell, because as soon as we played a creature, the timer started stalling. So we've still got a chance here. We might still be able to end this thing with that clutch Antiquities War draw. Come on, opponent. Let's go. Let's go. Please. I really don't want to have to concede this game for time. All right. They know about the Skysovereign, so there's no point in trying to hide that. Now they know about the Harvester. Let's first attack with the Familiar. See if we can get them to bite. My goodness, please. Come on, man. Come on. I'm so close. Don't make me do this. All right, we're gonna play the Harvester first because our opponent doesn't know this last card's a land. They may think we can't play this Skyship this turn. Resolves. All right, land. Let's go for it. Because if we're able to trigger our, yeah, okay, so they did save a cancel for it, which is fine. And then their last card is probably a removal spell. But maybe we can find another Walking Ballista to deal one more point of damage and end this game. Of course, our opponent will have to use a removal spell on something here. So what do they draw? What's the card? All right, our draw is not good. They say good game. Perhaps this is it? We make 5/5s? Combat? They lied. Why would they lie? Why would they say good game when it's not good game? All right, almost there. We're one life point away, and this game is over. We're going to give it one more turn. We're going to give it one more turn before Mrs. CGB skins me alive. Oh my goodness. Really, man? Ugh. All right, Tezzeret. Ballista, please let this resolve. Unbelievable. All right, Tezzeret, make a 1/1. This guy knows how to fight till the end.
Silent, obedient, perfect.
Let's see what they draw. Now they say good game. Maybe they mean it. Maybe they mean it. All right, that's the game. Thank you so much for watching this episode. As I've been alluding to for about 10 minutes, I've got to go. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more adventures of the young CGB. Next time, I'm not sure what we'll do next time. I'll figure out later. Okay. Hit that music. And until next time, I'm CGB. I'm out of here.